But do you remember, ladies and gentlemen, with the Dobbs decision and the leak of the draft, how the Supreme Court justices were treated and how silent Joe Biden was? I don't remember Justice Jackson opening her mouth about any of that either. And the constant, unrelenting attack on the Supreme Court and the justices, the defaming and the smearing of the court by Joe Biden. He did it his entire term. Check this out. Go.
President Biden doesn't have a view on whether or not protesters ought to show up at the private homes of Supreme Court justices. Watch this.
This one is going to be really interesting, and I will invite any Democrats to please chime into the comments and explain this, because what I'm about to show you, I don't think you'll have an answer for. Let's jump into this one. What's up, people? Carlton Flowers here with the Go Political channel. And this is going to be a very touchy and interesting topic. And I really would like to hear from Democrats how you explain this. I want to hear from the people who are in constant fear that the sky is falling, that we're under a dictatorial regime from a president who refuses to listen to and abide by the Supreme Court. Okay, I really want to know. So let's carry on here, picking back up with the White House press secretary. This is back in 2024, and we're going to see a protest going on in the right there at the front door of a sitting member of the Supreme Court, and then we're going to listen to some very interesting comments by then President Joe Biden. And then let's draw a comparison from that, what you're about to hear, and then what we're seeing right now. So let's jump back to this video here.
On that.
Decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme.
Okay, so that was a protest that was going on after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And the protest was right down the street in front of one of the sitting members of the Supreme Court. Okay, and Joe Biden had nothing to say about that. He was okay with that. We even had threats against Supreme Court justices because people didn't get their way. So keep that in mind too. But now we're going to listen to some comments that kind of sound a little radical from President Joe Biden. And then we're going to draw a comparison to what we're seeing today with the hysteria about our current dictator in chief. So here, back to the video.
Supreme Court majority wrote the following. And with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Clearly, for all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
President Biden, the Congressional Black Caucus said the Supreme Court has thrown into question its own legitimacy. Is this a rogue court?
This is not a normal court.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it was even worse than that. Here I have.
Okay, let's just talk about this. That was Joe Biden making comments about the Supreme Court, how they're a rogue court, making comments about how he's not going to obey the Supreme Court, how the power of the office of the presidency comes above all. Now, you remember when we had the student loan forgiveness thing, and then the Supreme Court came back and said, no, you can't do that. And he specifically stated that he was not going to abide by what the Supreme Court said, and he wasn't going to reverse his executive order. And everybody sided, well, the Democrats sided with Joe Biden in stating that, oh, you don't have to pay back your student loans. Sure, you went to college. They served you food. You ate in the cafeteria. You stayed in the dorms. You sat in classrooms. You exercised in the gym, and you used up all of the resources. You benefited from all the people who went to work every day working for you while you were in school, but you don't have to pay for it. Okay, so he said, forget the Supreme Court. I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to let you get away with this, and I'm going to forgive your loans. Okay, so why do I bring all this up? Well, here's why I bring it up. Right now, of course, we know that Donald Trump is the president, and during the campaign, everyone was fear-mongering and saying that he's going to be a dictator. And of course, you know, they were saying he was going to be Adolf. I can't say the full name because I'll get demonetized. They said he's going to be a ruthless dictator. They're going to round up all the black people, the brown people, put them in concentration camps. Anyone who's from another country will get deported no matter what. We'll see U.S. citizens getting deported. There will never be another election ever again. He won't ever leave office, and all of these scary things. And so now, while we're deporting people, the Democrats are yammering on every day about rule of law. And all of a sudden, we flipped from stating that the Supreme Court was a rogue court back when this man was in office. We had the same Supreme Court justices, and all the Democrats were saying that we needed to add maybe 3, 4, 5 new Supreme Court justices because they're no good. It's a rogue court. They've been bought off. Okay, you remember that? You remember The View talking about how we needed to fire Supreme Court justices? We need to impeach them, get rid of them, and start from scratch or change the system because they had too much power and they were rogue. Remember all that? Now, this is the same Supreme Court, and now the Democrats are screaming, saying that President Trump is not obeying the Supreme Court related to these deportations. They're saying that no one is above the law, and he needs to bow down and accept the rulings of the Supreme Court and stop all of this deportation of illegal aliens, right? Isn't that interesting? So every day we see it on the news that, oh, well, the Supreme Court should be respected and we should listen to them, right? And Donald Trump thinks he's a dictator because he's overriding the Supreme Court, which he has not. A lot of people have improperly interpreted those rulings related to the deportations, and it's not what they think. So he has not disobeyed orders of the Supreme Court. It's quite to the contrary, and we'll have to get into that on another video. But how convenient and hypocritical is it that the radical left is screaming every day saying that Donald Trump needs to bow down to the Supreme Court because they have the ultimate authority, but they were behind this man saying, I can override the Supreme Court and the president has the ultimate authority. That doesn't make any sense. But now we're scared half out of our wits because we claim that Donald Trump is a dictator? Can you explain that? Please explain that. Just a year ago, the Supreme Court, which has a majority of conservatives, that was just outrageous. They were rogues. This same Supreme Court, which has a majority of conservatives, well, now they're the heroes. Anytime they step in and allow these lower courts like Judge, Bozoberg, to come in and make rulings and claim that the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C., the local court jurisdiction, can make determinations and decisions that affect the entire country, right? He can tell President Trump what to do. He can tell Texas what to do. You have to look up that whole thing, all right? But nobody seems to have anything to say about that. I don't hear the same Democrats who were telling Joe Biden not to listen to the Supreme Court, but now they're standing up for Judge Bozo claiming that he should bow down and submit to a lower court judge. While this man said, we're not listening to the Supreme Court because the president has the ultimate power. Now, feel free to chime in the comments and explain this to me because I don't understand it. I really don't. And if we were to write down the comments of what you just heard Joe Biden state in that speech, and if we put Donald Trump's name on that, everyone would be outraged. But you same people who think he's a dictator had nothing to say when Joe Biden said it. So it's okay to have a dictator as long as that dictator aligns with your party. Now, Republicans are guilty of this too. I remember back in 2008, I voted for Barack Obama the first term. I remember people in my church stating that he was going to declare this country to be under Sharia law. The Constitution will go bye-bye, and we were going to become a Muslim nation, and he's going to be a dictator. He's going to throw out rule of law. You know, it was a bunch of fear-mongering, the same type of stuff that you see Democrats stating today about Donald Trump being Adolf. Well, your radical far-right people were fear-mongering much in the same way back in 2008, and none of that came to pass. We never went under Sharia law. I might disagree with a lot of the decisions that Barack Obama made, but we didn't just we didn't toss out the Constitution. We went more socialistic, yeah. But it was nothing to the level of the fear-mongering that was going on during that campaign season. And so now the same people that were so upset about that are doing exactly the opposite and taking it a step further, because now we're claiming that Donald Trump is equal to the worst dictator in the history of the world who was responsible for ending the lives of 6 million people. And that is just so absurd. And as I said in the last video, here you got President Trump, who has a daughter married to a Jewish man and has Jewish grandchildren. But the radical left is saying that he's equal to Adolf, who ended the lives of 6 million Jewish people. Man, oh man. In the next 4 years, if we don't see something that awful and horrible happening, I think we should never trust and respect the yammerings of any of you folks on the radical left ever again, because it's awful how you come up with this stuff and then turn a blind eye to the nonsense that just happened in the last 4 years. So I just wanted to make that point and get an opinion. I'm open to hearing it. I really am. Okay. I'm not a diehard Republican. I'm in fact against the deep state Republicans as much as I'm against the deep state Democrats. I'm against the warmongering Republicans who are connected to BlackRock. BlackRock is in the back pocket of a lot of Republicans who just constantly want war. We're going to talk about that in a video too coming up. But I'd like to hear your opinion about this. Convince me. Try if you may. And in the meantime, you better like and subscribe, because it's going to start getting real good here. I got some good content coming out, and I'm going to be exposing a lot of hypocrisy on both sides. So what the heck? That's all I got for this one. This is Carlton, and I am out.